Alright, so this is a Jeruselum artichoke. It's December now, so it's been cold here for a while. Most of the hairs have bristled off. The flowers have faded and the leaves are mostly gone. I'm digging it now because it's frozen a couple times and the roots have a lot of inulin, which gives you gas. But once they freeze, it turns into carbohydrates and becomes sweeter, and the gaseous effects are less potent. So I'm going to go ahead and get a pitchfork in the ground, loosen this plant up. And it's just a single plant, so it's only a year old, so there's probably not a lot of tubers on this one. Ooh, better than I thought. Just loosen up this dirt. Wow. Ooh, I broke that one. See, it's kind of like a potato. You would plant one tuber. That tuber would give rise to the stalk, and then off that tuber, little thin roots will come out, and then they store their energy in the winter in these other tubers. I've never seen them come out with the stalk like this. These are big tubers. Just break them off where the roots are attached and try not to crunch them because they're kind of crispy and they'll break easy in half. Now, I don't think there's any more. I think they all came up with the plant. And I want these to come back in this same spot next year, so I'm going to take a few of these. Loosen some soil up. Here you can see that's the little rootlet that was attached to the plant, so it's probably oriented like this, and there's a little bud right there. You can see that protrusion. I'm going to orient that up when I plant it in the ground because that's where the stalk is going to come out from. So I'm going to try and orient that up so it doesn't have to work too hard to grow back. And I'm just going to bury these back into the ground. Space them out a little bit so they got some room to grow. I'll dig this guy a new hole. Bury this straight back in the ground. Up. I don't have any right now, but I'll put some mulch on that later. So I feel like I made them a little more vulnerable by digging them up and agitating them. It's gonna freeze, so if I put some mulch on it, that'll protect them from harder frosts over the winter time. And then each one of those individual tubers I just planted will come back up as a stalk like this and produce multiple tubers, just like you saw here.
I know Lance was throwing stuff down in there when he was around.
Got my mulch here, courtesy of the neighbors, courtesy of the no neighbors. Get some sticks on it, make sure it stays there. It's kind of windy at Frostburg, if you haven't noticed. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and rinse these tubers off before I store them in sand. Can't tell if this is hot water or if my hands are cold. Kind of open them up, kind of get all that dirt out of all those little crevices everywhere. I'm not scrubbing them too hard. Just get them cleanish. Get all these pockets of dirt out. Now, I'm just gonna pat dry all of these tubers. still got a lot of water. Especially tubers like these where they have all the cracks and crevices. I want to get it out of there. Oops, didn't dry that one yet. So I'll just wipe this mud off on this nice white towel. Get the water off.
So what do we want to do with the dirty towel when we're done with it?
Leave it on the washer for the day. So, some of the tubers and other locations I was going to harvest, they've been disturbed and it didn't really pan through, so it wasn't the biggest harvest, and I could stick that in my fridge if I wanted to, but for the sake of demonstration, we're going to bury it in sand, kind of mimic the effects of having a root cellar. So, I got an empty bucket here. Give myself a nice layer on the bottom of the bucket. Take some tubers like this nice big one. Nestle them in the sand. I'm gonna make sure they don't touch each other, because where they touch, that'd probably be where they'd rot if they did. This will help prevent that. So I'm just gonna puzzle piece these together. Get myself some more sand on top. That looks like enough. Grab some more of these. Got lots of small ones. Get them in there.
Unless, of course, you want it to be.
You're welcome to share with people. As always, discretion is probably. I'm not like a closet trapper.
Get them in a nice spot. Give them some space. Now, just cover all these up with a nice, generous layer of sand. I forgot to mention that it's not dry sand because I don't want to dry out the tubers. It's not wet, it's just slightly moist enough to keep them hydrated. And this sand is kind of going to serve the purpose of insulation. So it'll keep them moist and it'll also keep them from freezing. I'm just going to store this on my back porch through the winter. Another thing I might do is bury some soil or mound it up around this bucket to help insulate on these edges. There's a lot of tubers real close to the edge of the bucket. And what I really could have just left them in the ground, dug them up when I wanted them, because that's the best root cellar you can get, just leave them in the ground. Rest of the way, flatten it out. And that's good enough for me. Worms in this too. I should have told him how nice our soil is.
Sounds good. Are you watching me?